Much of anxiety, as you know, is about something I'm not even aware I'm thinking that's now having a visceral effect on my body. And now my behavior is avoidant, and now I'm shaking and anxious, and I'm not breathing properly, and I'm starved of oxygen in my brain, or I'm not sleeping properly. And if we can wind all the way back to what's the fear about that we're thinking, the way we're thinking, the way people think about spiders and makes them fearful, whereas other people who don't think that way about spiders don't fear them.
Hi, I'm Dr Jodi Richardson, and this is Well, Hello Anxiety. In a world that often moves too fast, we're here to pause, breathe, and understand anxiety together. Each episode will explore practical strategies, share honest conversations, and uncover the science behind anxiety and well-being, all while creating a space where it's okay to not be okay. Let's continue this journey together. Welcome back to part 2 of my conversation with Dr Amanda Ferguson. If you did not listen to last week, please go back, because as you'll hear this week when we're talking about anxiety, Amanda is a psychologist, a clinical hypnotherapist. She has expertise in recovery, in personal development. She has worked with and witnessed firsthand people experiencing existential dilemmas. And last week we talked about the 5 different existential dilemmas. One of those being death, which most of us are aware of, but there are 4 others. So such a great conversation. Amanda, welcome back. Thank you for joining me for another episode. I'm so grateful to you for sharing some of your very precious time with me again.
Such a delight, Jodi. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Amanda, like the conversation that we had that went to air last week was just so powerful, and I think there's so much that we can all take from it. But one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about next is the what-ifs of anxiety. They Like you've said, they can hold such a tight grip on us, and it can make it really hard for us to know what to do and how to make decisions and how to move forward. How do we disarm those what-ifs? What can we do?
One of the great tricks I use is to imagine that the what-if is way out in front of us. And so it's beyond us. And so we actually don't have power over it if we've externalized it. It's said to be, I'm beside myself with stress and anxiety. We want to be with ourselves. We want to actually grab hold of that what if, bring it in as if with your hand, and stare it down as if it's there in front of you and you've got it in your hand. So you're owning it. It doesn't have power over you. You're getting power over it. And then asking ourselves the questions, what would I do if that really did happen? Where would I go? Who would I turn to? What are the resources? What's available to me? So that I know how I would deal with that what if, to disarm it.
I love those questions, and it's about being an observer. It's about, I use this metaphor when I'm speaking sometimes, that anxiety can feel like it is washing you down the river. You can feel like you're floundering, you can't think straight, you've got discomfort. It's kind of a struggle. And if we can hop out of the river, we can swim to the bank, get out, and like the anxiety is still going, like we just sort of step out and watch it. And it's this kind of ability to kind of be an observer, be that witness to what's happening. So we're taking our what if. I started the podcast full of anxiety, approaching 200 episodes, and oh my gosh, I was riddled with it. And I'd shared that with Craig Harper, who has the You Project podcast, and I'd gone and done it. I'd said it out loud that I was starting a podcast, and I knew I kind of did it, I think, because I knew that I'd be sharing it publicly and I'd be more accountable in a way. But I was accountable to myself. But everything in my brain screamed, don't do it. It felt so risky. And all the what ifs. What if I embarrass myself? What if I say the wrong thing? What if I can't, ask questions that people are thinking about? What if I can't make the difference I want to make? What if, whoa, so many. And so if you can take those and start answering those questions, then you're actually, is it a bit like the idea of, often we can be catastrophic in our thinking because we think the worst thing will happen, that we kind of go there and go, well, what if that happened? What would I do? So, let's keep going, because this is just so, universal for all of us who live with an anxiety disorder and for everyday humans. Like we want to know what's going to happen. And so our brain just goes to what if all the time, doesn't it?
It does. And I think it's humbling too, because all of us are prone to make mistakes. And even children hate making mistakes. Adults are going to have to make mistakes in order to continue to learn and grow. It is part of life if you're going to learn and grow. And if you're not going to, that's a worse mistake.
Yeah.
We mentioned last podcast, you can't avoid the evils, you can't avoid the suffering. Wouldn't you prefer the suffering of, oh, okay, I just stuffed that up. I actually took on bigger risk than I actually had calculated or thought I'd calculated. So how can I break that risk down now into sort of smaller steps? And I think that's to your earlier point of really, this personal development and a healthy approach to things that make us anxious, to the what-ifs, that we can usually break them down and gradually expose ourselves to the what-ifs and build up courage, confidence, and ability and resilience to the fact that, okay, I maybe made a mistake there, or I didn't succeed there, I wasn't as ideal there, and have the humility and courage and humanness to accept it.
And to know, I think, by also reflecting and knowing that I've done hard things before and sort of knowing that even when things do go wrong, as they inevitably do, because we're human, like you say, we don't get it right all the time. Yep. Knowing that we're still standing, as my dad used to say, a hard day will eventually come to an end and the sun will come up tomorrow.
Yes.
And I think about the what ifs, and I wonder if, I know people, obviously like you, I talk to a lot of people where anxiety is a huge challenge. And, here's me sharing an example of something that is a big deal, like starting a podcast. Like that's a big step to take. But for some people, the anxiety is around making a phone call, like literally just having to ring the mechanic to book their car in, or having to go to a dinner with a catch up with old friends who you've known all your life, but maybe feeling a little bit anxious. And so sometimes I wonder if we don't even realise we're asking kind of what if questions. But it really is at the heart of anxiety, isn't it? What is the uncertainty around this thing that's driving this threat response in the brain?
And look, ideally, if you do know what that anxiety is about, that cognition or the thought process, then it's easier to face it and tackle it. And sometimes we won't know till after we've exposed ourselves to making the phone call to the mechanic or going to the dinner party with old friends. And in each case, you can actually break down that anxiety. For instance, with the mechanic phone call, maybe be with a friend when you make the call. With the anxiety of the dinner party, is there one person that you can go with to the dinner party? Turn up early to meet that one person and then not be alone if that's the cognition process that's making you anxious about being exposed, being on your own against the group, for instance. So knowing what's going on in our minds ultimately is the answer to how we deal with anxiety.
It really is. And the quality of what's happening in our mind ultimately determines the quality of our life, doesn't it?
It does, because the number of people that say, it just happens, I just get anxious. And it really doesn't just happen unless, you've got, say, post-traumatic stress disorder in the car next to you backfires. Well, then, yes, you're just triggered because you've actually got that injury. However, much of anxiety, as you know, is about something I'm not even aware I'm thinking that's now having a visceral effect on my body, and now my behavior is avoidant, and now I'm shaking and anxious and I'm not breathing properly and I'm starved of oxygen in my brain, or I'm not sleeping properly. And if we can wind all the way back to what's the fear about that we're thinking, the way we're thinking, the way people think about spiders and makes them fearful, whereas other people who don't think that way about spiders don't fear them.
That's it. And it can feel like it comes from nowhere. It can feel like that. And every now and again there will be a trigger that's sort of below the level of consciousness, maybe a smell, but it's that classic, isn't it? That, for example, so my daughter recently played school footy, and she got a kick in the head.
Ooh.
Yeah. And she came home having had a great day. She'd kept playing. I don't think she'd said anything to any of the teachers, or they probably wouldn't have let her keep playing, but she had a headache, and she has a bit of a chronic headache problem anyway, so it's sort of hard to know, did this injure her neck, or is this could this be possibly a concussion of sorts, which of course you have to go to because it was a knock to the head. And then you'd sort of, I'd be like, right, we need to organise the GP, do the concussion test with the app, etc. And then you'd sort of organise the things, have the appointments, and then I'd go about my afternoon doing some work. But then when my mind would flick back to, is she going to be okay? Then my stomach would sink.
Yeah.
And then I'd realise, okay, everything's in place, like going to the doctor tomorrow, we've done what we can do, keep an eye on her. She wasn't too bad. It wasn't too significant. And the head check app helped me sort of step through some of the concussion tests as well. But then I'd get busy and I'd get, making dinner and running someone to sport, maybe our son to footy training. And then my mind would go back. It's like I keep revisiting the wound. And every time I go back and I think about that, my stomach drops and I feel anxious because I don't know what it's going to mean for her. And so sometimes we're having these fleeting thoughts or a little memory, or something happens, or we see something, or something reminds us of an injury from the past, or a stress, or something we're worried about in the moment or in the future. And that mindfulness skill can help us to kind of pull back the thread, can't it, to sort of see the origin. But so often we're just rushing through life and we miss those cues, and we miss those really important kind of triggers. And it's good to understand them, isn't it?
Oh, it's so important. And I think parents in particular are so focused on looking after children that when there's something beyond your control that does happen and will happen, it's doing just the best possible thing at the time, rather than fully protecting children, because that's an impossibility. That's an ideal, but it's not real. And maybe some of our belief system that underpins even those events where there is an injury, that we have to accept that that's part of existence and suffering and facing, mortality, that you do your best, you want the kids to get out into the world, and that's part of it, is dealing with injury, dealing with knocks, dealing with, life's adversities, that there's lessons and teachings to you and to your daughter in that too.
There really are. And I tell you what, she loved that footy day so much. She's like, I want to play footy next year. And my head immediately went to, oh no.
Yeah.
Whereas our son has been playing football for years and years and years. He's never had a concussion. He has had, his fair share of knocks, in injuries in other ways. But like that, I guess I'm used to it with him. And this is a first for her because she hasn't played a contact sport like this before. And that protection immediately came into my mind, like, oh my gosh, no, I don't think football is, which of course I'm not going to say that to her because that's just my anxiety about what could happen, knowing that, something significant has already happened. But I sometimes think, with letting my kids get on the train to go to Melbourne, to go and watch a footy game, letting them go out for dinner with their friends in one of the local towns at night, going to the beach on their own and swimming, which they've had lots of swimming lessons. I'm not worried about them drowning, but, just all those things where you've got to let go. Yeah. And I often find I'm in this sort of dialogue with myself about the protection, kind of the thoughts of how can I keep them safe coming in, but then also that realism coming in that this is really important. And then I'm like, but what if something happens? I'm like, well, if something happens, I'll just have to deal with it. And of course I don't want it to happen, but the answer is not saying no. You have to stay home and stay within a stone's throw of the family home, because but it's just so hard, isn't it? Because quality of our thinking, we worry about the things that could go wrong, and things do go wrong.
And there's too, with the what-ifs, what if scenarios, and teaching the kids what to do if things and when things do go wrong. And even to the point of your daughter's injury, that, if she wants to play football next year, maybe there's some coaching around how to avoid head injuries in the future that would help her to learn from that event and for you as well. There's so many answers to the what ifs as to who can help, what can be done, learning and understanding, and something good can come out of even something like a knock like that. And there are protocols for concussion, of course, that if she got one injury too many, then football stops.
That's true. And the doctor did a really thorough assessment. It was brilliant. She has a mild concussion. She's going to be absolutely fine. But yeah, that's one in the book now for her. And yeah, it's just, I think it's really nice on the podcast here for us to really acknowledge that life can be really, really hard at times. And we obviously spent quite a bit of time talking about that in our last episode. But I think you've got to choose your hard, don't you? Because the what if questions will, if we listen to those and we let those take over, we can easily retreat, can't we? And we can sort of stay a bit more safe within what's in our control and stay with a more predictable life. But all the good stuff's on the other side of those questions, isn't it?
It so is. And, you know, as the famous philosopher whose name I always forget says, it makes sense backwards, that your daughter may go on to become a football physiotherapist who helps people with concussion. Having experienced it firsthand will make her such a wonderful therapist.
Yes, that's right. That's right. You just don't know how these experiences in life are going to shape the future. And, you know, nothing's ever wasted. I always do believe that nothing's ever wasted. Even when I think about my experience of depression, the tears I cried, the pain and the sadness that I experienced. And I remember my psychologist, my wonderful psychologist, saying to me, you have experienced the most grief a person can experience. And look at you, you're still standing. You're still going, you know, doing the things that you need to do. Obviously, I had a break from a lot of things I needed to do. I couldn't in the thick of it. But even when I'd still have those episodes of just howling on the bed and just feeling so upset and distressed that all I could do was just cry and cry and cry. But eventually the tears stop. Eventually you've cried all your tears out. And I'll never forget that he said that to me, when he said that to me, I thought, goodness, I have. And it was so, so hard. And I know that there's more of that coming my way, as there is for all of us, knowing the things we talked about in terms of the existential dilemmas and death being one of them. I've got aging parents. I've got one parent who's thriving and just recently trialled CrossFit, and I've got one that is really struggling and things are declining, and it's painful. But we can get through it. And if we look after ourselves the best we can, but we turn to others, we reach out for support, we know we're not alone and we have a lot of compassion, we're pretty remarkable, aren't we, the way that we can keep going?
Oh, look, there is a phrase, life never gives you more than you can handle. And when you're going through those extreme hardship times, it does not seem to make sense. It's, as you said, on the other side. It's always better to be on the other side, and getting through those times always changes us, always makes us stronger and deeper and wiser and more able as humans, and then to deal with the next things and the next. So it does all add up to resilience and life experience, helping us with the future and creating us into being more mature human beings.
We have more compassion for ourselves, don't we, and for others as a result of it. Amanda, I want to shift gears. We've talked about some really deep topics last week and so far in this conversation, and I want to sort of really tap into your expertise around anxiety and healthy personal development. Can you start by talking to us about the role of personal development in anxiety? Because, I think there's a lot that we can learn from you. We don't have a huge amount of time, but I don't want to miss the opportunity to ask this question.
So I call this growth edges, that when you're feeling the anxiety about doing something new that's going to cause growth or personal development, there's an edge of anxiety because you're at the edge of growth and you're facing it like stepping into the ocean, you know. It's that sort of sense of anticipation that brings anxiety with it. And you are going to experience anxiety if you're going to grow. And it's more about calculating that anxiety risk and having enough anxiety that you're motivated, or stress that you're motivated and you've got some energy and you are challenged, because that's what growth will do. It will challenge us and bring anxiety, but also being able to support yourself, be supported sufficiently so you can manage the anxiety of the growth process. And that may be a team that's supporting you in a marathon, a team of a coach, of a physiotherapist, of a family friend or mentor, or your partner, or even another sibling, so that you've got enough people to rely on to make it through that marathon. It may be more training, more education about what it is you're trying to undertake, like you would have done with your podcast when you started it. So it's resources, finding what resources do you need, and a mentor can tell you. A mentor in the field that you're looking at growing in will tell you what resources you need. And so you don't have to know that for yourself. It's about finding the right information and the right resources, and then whatever it is you need to build in yourself in terms of knowledge, skills, abilities, mindset, dealing with the anxiety in a clinical way potentially that really allows you to grow and move forward.
Yes, it's so true. Gosh, the idea that these edges, I love that, because it feels achievable, doesn't it? It's just, we're just at the edge. It's okay, we're not going too far, we're not going over the edge, we're just nudging at it. You've got these growth edges, and I don't know who said it, but if the first step feels too hard, it's too big a step. We need to sort of wind it back. And I don't know who said that. I don't know who to attribute that to. It doesn't matter. But it's about breaking things down. And like you say, what do you need to support you? And I did Seth Godin's podcasting workshop. It was total procrastination. It's just, how long can how much more do I need to learn before I just say yes and do this thing? Ultimately, you've got to find a way to move forward, and it doesn't have to be a huge step. It doesn't have to be big, and you can support yourself. Like you say, what else do you need to know to feel more confident and a little less anxious? Who's on your side? Who's on your team? What do you need to do to prepare yourself for this step? And who is the professional person that you might turn to, like yourself, Dr Amanda Ferguson, who supports people to do these challenging things, to take these steps, to sort of nudge at the growth edge. And eventually that edge is no longer a growth edge. It's a comfort zone again. It's in the comfort zone. And then what do? We grow again.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And that's why, we have that phrase, baby steps in therapy, because people are growing in therapy and they are going to face their growth edges, and a baby step is doable.
It is, and it opens up life's possibilities. It does. And if that life possibility is going to make your life a bit easier, like being able to comfortably pick up the phone or go and have a conversation with somebody who you don't know to ask a question, or to start a class or a new hobby. Maybe you've always wanted to try pottery, but you just feel a bit anxious about being in a new group. The purpose of these steps is not to suffer. There is a little bit of anxiety that we take with us. The purpose is for meaning and for fulfillment and for opportunity and for joy and connection. There's so much good that comes with it. And that's why we need to make sure we're making decisions about how we want to grow, that it's important enough to us to take that, to put in the time and the effort, seek the help, and to take the steps that we need to be able to, step into that growth zone and enjoy the rewards of it, because I think that's often overlooked, isn't it? There's so much good that comes when you are willing to move forward in this way.
Absolutely. And all you need to do is remind yourself, how would you feel if you didn't?
Yes.
And in another year, if you still hadn't, how would you feel? Because you get to choose, and either way is going to bring some discomfort. Which discomfort are you going to prefer?
Yes. Oh, my goodness. Choose your hard. Oh, Amanda. Oh, I've loved talking with you. You just bring so many great insights, and you're so quotable as well. I've written so many ideas down. But no, you genuinely, you've given us so much to think about, and I think you're so inspiring. and I've absolutely loved talking with you, and I know our listeners will have loved listening. How can people learn more about you, work with you? Where can they find you on the online world? And we know in the real world that you're in Mona Vale in New South Wales.
Thank you so much, Jodi. That is so complimentary. And look, I do remote telehealth sessions as well for anyone in Australia and indeed overseas. And probably the easiest way to find me and all my resources is on my website, which is dramandaferguson.com.au. And I have LinkedIn and all the other social handles as well. And you can find all of that information on my website.
Wonderful. And we'll put those details in the notes wherever you're listening to your podcast as well. Amanda, thank you again for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure to have 2 episodes with you. I'm very, very grateful. So thanks again.
Oh, such a pleasure and such a treat to have a chat with you, Jodi. Thank you so much.
If you would take a moment to leave a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts, I would be so grateful. I read everyone. They really bring joy to me and the team, and they do help other listeners to know that this is a trusted podcast where people really care about the app. And they really do help other people to know that this is a trusted place to learn. So thank you so much. I'll see you next week. Bye. Thank you for sharing this time with me on Well, Hello Anxiety. Remember, understanding anxiety is the first step to managing it. Until next time, be gentle with yourself. Take things one moment at a time. Focus on what you can control and know that you are not alone on this journey. If you found value in today's episode, please share it with someone who might need to hear it too. I'm Dr Jodi Richardson, and I'll meet you right back here next week.